Hello and welcome to Week in One. The top stories of the past week wrapped up in half an hour. I'm Xoli Mgambi. What a week in Parliament. After last week's dramatic events, which saw riot police removing an EFF member from the National Assembly, Cyril Ramaphosa hammered out a truce with opposition parties on Tuesday. But it didn't last long. Wednesday saw things fall apart when the Democratic Alliance pushed ahead with a motion to censure President Jacob Zuma. The session played out late into Wednesday night with classic delaying tactics to avoid the motion.
It was a truce that lasted for a day. The DA pushed ahead with its plan to table a motion to censure President Jacob Zuma for not appearing in the National Assembly regularly. President Zuma is not a member of the legislature. Parliament rules state he appears in the House at least once a quarter. But the ANC has described the motion as a direct violation of Tuesday's peace deal, saying parties had agreed to put Parliament's powers and privileges report on ice. That's if the DA agreed to do the same with its motion against President Zuma. But that was not to be.
It is possible that we may not all have been totally committed to going through with that position.
With the sitting of the House going late into the night, the DA tabled its motion. He called for President Jacob Zuma to be censured for failing to account to the National Assembly.
Our president is absent without leave. He's failing in his constitutional duty and obligation to appear here in Parliament. And the majority of this House will in fact turn a blind eye, will filibust, will use riot police to protect one person, President Zuma. It can't be accepted.
Now the ANC says all deals are off.
I therefore stand here on behalf of the African National Congress, our glorious movement, to bury the motion of censure and to call for the revival of the report of the Powers and Privileges Committee.
Lester Kivet, Parliament.
By Thursday, the truce with opposition parties was firmly off the table, with the fate of EFF MPs facing suspension in the balance. It took another marathon session on Thursday afternoon that only ended at 4 a.m. on Friday morning, before agreement was reached to postpone that debate on the report to next week.
After a lengthy stalemate, political parties have reached a new compromise. The tabling of a controversial report has been deferred again. It recommends suspensions of up to a month for some EFF MPs for heckling President Jacob Zuma. Parties have also agreed to hold fresh talks with Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa after a deal he brokered collapsed.
The president appear. It's as simple as that.
Ramaphosa says the DA's move made the agreement unworkable. But the DA says it never agreed to shelve the motion.
The deal was to stick by the rules. Then President Zuma refused to come to Parliament, therefore breaking the rules.
I want to proceed. The right to speak in this.
After a marathon session, the longest sitting of Parliament in democratic South Africa, MPs will return to the House next week.
Filibustering has become a popular tactic in Parliament. Recently, we've seen prolonged sessions dogged by robust and volatile debate. ANC MPs introduced about 50 motions in an attempt to stall the motion to censure President Jacob Zuma for his no-show in the National Assembly.
On behalf of the African National Congress,
National Freedom Party,
the Democratic Alliance.
It's a popular parliamentary tactic the world over.
This House notes that we look forward to the filibuster. Our Red Bulls are ready and we will be here all night.
By definition, the Oxford Dictionary describes the delaying tactic as an action such as prolonged speaking which obstructs progress in a legislative assembly in a way that does not technically contravene the required procedures. In other words, going on and on to the point of talking out a bill or talking a bill to death.
Why is that Betty, honourable maniac, allowed to do that?
Case in point, the tabling of countless motions during Wednesday's proceedings to delay the motion to censure President Jacob Zuma over his no-show in Parliament.
On behalf of the EFF, which is the government in waiting, arise to move that the House in its next sitting debate and discuss the quality of speeches delivered.
This House debate the disappearance of President Jacob Zuma and consider offering a reward to any person who is able to deliver him to answer questions.
I have seen them using the middle finger. I was just imitating them.
If the minister wants to discuss what a inappropriate gesture is, I'm quite happy to take her outside and give her some demonstrations.
Is it parliamentary for Honorable Minister Mbalula to chew chappies in this house?
ENCA commentator Angelo Fick says the tactic should be used productively.
In this case, the filibustering seems to be much more about preventing parties from discussing issues in addition to voting on those issues. So this isn't even about passing laws or preventing the passage of a law. This is much more about preventing certain kinds of discussions from getting onto the table. And that, to me, is not as productive as it can be.
So it seems that this new tactic learned by our politicians has not yet worn off, and South Africans will have to endure them spending hours skirting around the real issues. Nontobeko Sibisi, Johannesburg.
Let's now move to Durban, where Nkandla was in the spotlight this week. And if you want to know more about Public Works' role in the controversial upgrades to the president's home, you may be disappointed. Department officials facing charges relating to Nkandla will tell their stories behind closed doors. 12 officials are charged with violating departmental procedures, misconduct and maladministration.
They're a bit anxious, they're a bit scared, and they felt that they want to dispense with these hearings as quickly as possible. It's a matter of whether it's public interest or whether the public is just interested.
The PSA says the employees maintain their innocence. One political analyst feels they're being made scapegoats.
This is even a further attempt to protect the big players, including number one. Because I think the skeletons are going to come out from those officials who are not prepared to take this lying down. They're not going to go down alone. And I think that would be very good for the country. For the first time, if they can be brave enough and say, we're not going to take it alone.
President Jacob Zuma has spent months at the center of the Nkandla debacle. But when 12 senior public works officials were charged for their roles in the 246 million rand improvements to his home, the spotlight shifted somewhat. Don't expect any juicy details from their disciplinary hearings, though.
When the hearings eventually take place here at 6 Durban Club Place, this is probably about as far as the media will get. The formal proceedings are expected to start next month and will continue into 2015. Desmond Thathia, Durban.
Moving to union matters now, and a show of unity from Labour Federation COSATU this week. This means that General Secretary Zwelinze Mavave is on safe ground for now, and expelled union NUMSA will also be engaged. I was at that media briefing on Thursday, and this is what came out. COSATU leaders are once again trying to present a united front.
We're saying we are now starting a process, a political process starting informally amongst the affiliates of COSATU.
We are pulling all stops to ensure that at the end of the day, this COSATU is united.
Zwelinze Mavave's disciplinary charges will now be referred to this process. But COSATU's leadership is at pains to point out Vavi is not receiving preferential treatment following an affair he had with a junior staff member in office. She wasn't so lucky, though, and was dismissed from the Federation as a result of the sex scandal. As for the expelled Metal Workers Union,
NUMSA will be engaged with a view of ensuring that it participates in a solution that COSATU seeks to achieve as part of that process.
Perhaps the most worrying feature about the COSATU crisis is what the Communist Party claims to be a tribalistic tone that the fighting has been perceived as in provinces like the Eastern Cape. The SACP says it's received concerning messages from traditional leaders in that province.
We felt that we needed to engage with them and also to reassure them that there's no basis for tribal approaches when we are resolving our own problems, both in the party, in the ANC, in COSATU, and in the alliance formations as well.
Meanwhile, the long-awaited COSATU Special National Congress has now been confirmed for next year. Xolo Mgambi, Johannesburg. Still ahead, it's been a week of memorial services as the bodies of those who died in the Lagos church building collapse came home. But the wait is not over for everyone.